Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour. The Philadelphia Eagles are getting set for preseason game number 2 against the Cleveland Browns after defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 34 to 27 in their first preseason game. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, bud?
Well, I'm surviving through a heat wave now. As you know, for anyone in the US, it was like 106 degrees here the other day. Today it's 95. We're cooling down, but yeah, times are a little tough up here. So, but besides that, it's great to have football back. So pumped to have football back, and so pumped to talk about actual football games,
Yes.
even if preseason.
Yeah, even like you said, even if it is preseason, it is nice to talk about actual football games. Before we jump into what we want to discuss today, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LGHarrell54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate all the show. We have a bunch of shows that are going to be putting out weekly shows throughout the upcoming football season. All right, Connor. So quickly touch base on the game. Obviously, the score, the results don't matter. It's kind of the result of the game, I should say, does not matter. It's more of a how did you play? What did you get out of the game? What are your first, initial impressions or first initial thoughts after the game against the Bengals?
I guess my biggest initial thought was we might have a problem at CB2. I don't want
Not
to.
might. We do have a problem at
Yeah,
CB2.
I see. That's the thing I struggle with. I don't want to overreact to it, and I know that some people are saying, "Well, we've only seen one game," but the issue is we haven't seen any real tangible improvement in practice. And this week during the joint practices, it was just as bad, if not worse, than the Bengals game. Sure, do they periodically flash? Absolutely, but we don't need periodic flashes when you're starting across from Kenyon Mitchell. You need to be able to be trusted to shut down or at least hold your own on the other side of the field for this defense. Because as we know, the more time that the front four, front three, front four, front five, whatever it is, are given, that's the more time and more opportunity that they get the chance to get home, make those sacks, make life miserable for another offense. But if they're able to move the ball to the same degree that the Bengals did against both Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo a little bit more, that's not good. And I understand people are like, well, they were playing Jamar Chase, and in a regular situation, that's going to be Kenyon Mitchell. But still, the other option is you got T. Higgins. You don't think T. Higgins is going to be able to do a similar thing to Keely Ringo or Adoree Jackson if he's given the opportunity in a regular season game? I hate to overreact to one game, but we just haven't seen any improvement from either of these two guys since pretty much day one of training camp. There's just been minor
And
flashes.
I mean, and if you think about it, going into last year when Darius Slay, got banged up, or Quinyon Mitchell got banged up, it wasn't Keely Ringo that they went to. It was Isaiah Rogers that they went to, that Vic Fangio went to. So yeah, there's definitely something that needs to be looked into. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Howie, 13 draft picks next year. Now nobody's going to give away a starting quality corner. I know the Eagles back in 2017 traded Jordan Matthews for Ronald Darby, who started for the Super Bowl champion team. With 3 years, 2-3 years ago, we traded for CJ So like, it could potentially happen, but something has to be done. Like, Keely Ringo is really good on special teams, but like you said, if I'm Dallas, if even if Quinyon is traveling with CeeDee Lamb, you have to go George Pickens against Keely Ringo. I think they were former teammates in college, if I'm not mistaken. So like, I'm gonna go at George Pickens all day. If you're Patrick Mahomes, um, you got Rasheed Rice and Xavier Worthy. Like, one of them is gonna have to be covered by Adoree Jackson or Keely Ringo. The Rams again, Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams. Um, just you can go down the line. Tampa Bay, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Abuka. Like, the Eagles are going to be facing a gauntlet of receivers, and while we have faith in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, um, you still need to figure out that CB2 quasi two position, because I do think that, like, if need be, they would put Cooper DeJean on the outside, but I also think that depends on the safety position. Do they trust Makuba? Do they trust Sidney Brown to start across from Reed Blankenship? There's a lot of questions in that secondary for the Eagles, and like you mentioned, also they were not answered in this joint practice with the Browns. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hoping Howie is scouring and trying to figure out that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. Well, Keely Ringo is good at special teams. There's a lot of guys who are good at special teams. I guess the blessing here would be maybe you can move on from Adoree Jackson, but no matter what, you do still need to bring somebody in, because the answer I don't think is in house. And maybe it'll take some time for them to get used to things. But for me, it's okay. Adoree Jackson might need time to adjust to things. Keely Ringo saw this defense last year. He was part of this defense last year. Did Vic Fangio trust him and go to him? No, it was Isaiah Rodgers. I agree, but you see what this defense is about. You have more knowledge of this defense. There was more of an expectation that Keely Ringo would be prepared to step up, and I guess this is kind of the you know the the thing that happens with the Eagles when they decide to lean in on their youth versus addressing a potential need. And well, it seems to be working in the way of Moro Ajomo, Gabe Hall, Jalix Hunt. There's a bunch of other guys that leaning into their draft picks in their youth. Seems like it's going to end up paying off. I just don't see it happening at the CB2 position. But I mean, that was the biggest thing that stood out and my biggest concern coming out of that preseason game and coming out of the joint practices. I know we're going to get into the joint practices a bit later, but I mean, it's a very, very similar theme that comes out of it there. Otherwise, like when I look around, I thought, when we moved Thomas Booker, I was like, I feel like we're light at the defensive tackle position, the interior defensive line. That's been completely proven wrong because Moro Jomo looked great. Gabe Hall looked great. I don't know what we're going to see out of Byron Young or when we get the opportunity to see more out of him because he's been banged up for a lot of his time in Philadelphia. Um, Even I think it was Jacob Sykes had a pretty nice play. Granted, yes, it was against backups or third stringers, but he's likely a practice squad type player, and he had a couple really good plays in that Bengals game as well. So clearly, that is definitely not a position of concern, especially if you can lean into guys like a Jomo, Carter, and Davis to cover for 75+% of the snaps. You can totally lean into guys like Ty Robinson and Gabe Hall and whatever other depth options we have, because the defensive line coaching staff in Philadelphia is incredible. They get the most out of their talent, and it shows just back to last year with Milton Williams alone.
I mean, and you can also say that the secondary, like Christian Parker, is really good. Going back to the cornerback position, there was a big reason why I really wanted, Jair Alexander. I know he was injury prone in Green Bay, but like playing across from somebody like Quinyon Mitchell, or even keeping Darius Slay. Like Darius Slay was really good last year. I'm not saying give him like a multi-year deal, but bringing him back for another year probably wouldn't have hurt. So they definitely have to figure out that cornerback position. I wasn't worried about defensive tackle at all after Thomas Booker trade. I was pretty. I'm pretty high on Gabe Hall, Ty Robinson, the guys that'll be like third, fourth, fifth strings. We know Jalen Carter doesn't come off the field. Jordan Davis will probably play a little bit more. Moro Jomo, I think, is going to really step into that Milton Williams role. Now, will he be Milton Williams? I don't know, probably not, but I still think he's gonna really, show what he has. He's been really impressive in camp thus far. But yeah, like we'll see what happens. But that was my biggest negative takeaway, and positive. I thought Tanner McKee looked really good. Like he can be a starter in this league, and we're fortunate that the Eagles have him as a backup. We wanted him to be the backup last year, but it was Kenny Pickett. And I don't think Howie's going to trade him, but you never know if a team has a desperate need at quarterback. Who knows? If they can flip McKee for a first round pick, by all means do it. And then I think one other was AJ Dillon, for a guy who hasn't played he didn't play at all last season with the neck injury. He looked really good. And Will Shipley looked good too. And that wasn't even the starting offensive line. That was going up against the starting Bengals defense too, for a good chunk of that first half. So I am not worried in the least bit about our run game. Our run game is still going to be dominant. And as you know, Jalen always says, each game's going to look different. If he has to throw the ball to win, he'll throw it like he did against Pittsburgh. If they have to run the ball to win, they'll run the ball. He doesn't care about stats. All he cares about winning. And again, our big question on the show is, when did winning not become the main thing? Who cares how it's done? Just win the game. Like Jalen, it might be one of the only quarterbacks or few quarterbacks we've ever known that, you know, he doesn't care about his stats. He doesn't care about personal goal. All he wants to do is win and win championships, and that's all that should matter. And all this talk about, oh, Jalen doesn't look good. He's turning the ball over in camp. He's doing this. He's doing that. They need to throw the ball more. I don't give a crap how they score and how they win games. Just win. I don't give a crap how it looks. It's not going to bother me. And that's the one thing that always bothered me. Like last year, it was just like when people were begging for the Eagles to throw the ball. Why? Why would you go away from something that doesn't work? Are they winning football games? Yes. Then why do you care? Just win, and that's how they won the Super Bowl. And when he needed to throw the ball in the Washington or in the Super Bowl, he threw the ball. When teams were, when the Chiefs were, you know, pretty much saying, shutting down Saquon and daring Jalen Hurts to beat him, what did he do? He beat him. That's all that matters. So I'm going to continue to say I don't care how it gets done, and just win and by any means necessary.
Yeah, I agree with you. Definitely from the offensive perspective. I mean, we've beat that horse to death about, just win. All that matters is win, and when did win and stop mattering in the NFL? It it definitely, for some reason, within the national media forum, they have leaned towards it doesn't winning doesn't matter as much as the skill level. Like when they do their rankings, they're like, well, by skill, if Joe Burrow was in Philadelphia, he probably would have a Super Bowl or multiple. Josh Allen, same thing, blah, blah, blah. But that, like we've talked about before, Jalen Hurts probably asked to have this team around him. But did he do many managers dream of the prospect of having this team actually built around them? It just doesn't happen. And you can't take that and deduct points from Jalen Hurts or winning key games, important games, Super Bowls. You can't deduct points just based on who the people are around him. That just means we have a really good manager doing a really good job. And it clearly shows. And it's become kind of the envy of a lot of the league, and what a lot of the league is, trying to either try and replicate, or they're trying to dismantle it, and by through the league and getting rid of some of the practices that are used. I agree with you on Tanner McKee. I know, like, right after the game, there was people who were like, if we're offered a second round pick or third round pick, you trade him right away. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just not going to happen. We value, if you've been an Eagles fan long enough, back to the very first Super Bowl where we had to lean into Nick Foles after the Carson Wentz injury, that a backup quarterback is vital to the Philadelphia Eagles. It is so important. And Howie probably isn't going to, if a first round was on the table, I would bet Howie would entertain and even make the move. But at this point, they're going to keep him because the battle at QB3 is obviously not that stellar. Obviously, they look the part. They looked okay when they had to, and it'll be interesting to see who they decide to keep as the third. The likely other option is one will be kept as a third, and the other one will become a practice squad quarterback, and that'll be how they keep four quarterbacks hanging around. But Tanner McKee played incredible. He looked elite, and the best part about it was he actually played significant chunks of that time against starting defensive players with backup offensive players. Another plus, like I kind of gave it to Johnny Wilson on the last episode. Johnny Wilson has looked really good for the last about week. So since the Bengals game and through the joint practices, he's been making plays. He's been looking good. And then, of course, Darius Cooper had a really good game. I'm not so much flying on the Darius Cooper bandwagon yet. I'd like to see it become, continuous repeat performances through these next couple games and through the rest of the practices. Obviously, I don't know if we're going to see Tanner McKee as much through the remaining two games as we saw in game one. I'm sure we'll see him in these next two games, but how much, I'm not 100% certain where they're
I
going to
don't
go
think we'll
with
see him
that.
in the third game at all.
No, I don't think we will either. And he probably won't play a full half in this game against the Browns. I think they put so much value into the joint practices, plus he got a half in the Bengals game, that I think his preseason's almost over. And it's going to be the Dorian
I do
Thompson,
think
Robinson, and Kyle McCord show.
I think that the joint practices are primarily for the starters, though. Like he's because Hurts isn't playing at all this preseason, so this is his tune up. Was against
Of
the
course.
Browns in these joint practices. If McKee plays, he'll probably play a quarter. Get DTR and McCord in for the remainder of the game. But yeah, like I think that's McKee probably got a couple of snaps here and there, but it wasn't anything that would be substantial. But like we've seen him play, and not even just preseason. Like we saw him in game action last year. Yes, it was against um, you know the second half against Dallas, and then against the Giants in the regular season finale. But it still means something. Like just to see that tape, to see him how he would perform in a game um, in regular season, in NFL action, in an actual game, and not a preseason game where you don't game plan for anybody. But yeah, so like I mean, McKee's just really like he is so he went to Stanford, so like he's smart, obviously. And I find it like Jalen said like last year and I think the year before, like he would be the one that would answer a lot of the questions from McKee. But now they bounce things off each other. They both have an understanding of what they want to do offensively, so they bounce ideas off to answer each other's questions, and that's only makes the quarterback room even better.
Yeah, definitely. You can tell that, Tanner McKee's an intelligent player. He's a really good quarterback. And like you said, he's definitely a starter on probably 10 teams at a minimum within the NFL right now. But I mean, obviously, debatably, we may see quarterbacks in a different vein than the teams who currently have these quarterbacks. So, and then I guess the running back room, definitely you can trust that that room's going to be good. Saquon Barkley, his workload maybe decreased a little bit, but like there was talk. Apparently, there was the athletic reporter for the Cleveland Browns had high praise for Will Shipley through today and through the couple of days of joint practices that they had. And then AJ Dillon, like you said, he's probably only going to be used and needed in situational circumstances. But I mean, for a guy like you said who hasn't played in a year and a half, like or seen really meaningful any type of football field in a year and a half, he definitely looked good, and you can tell that he's not being used a ton. There's a high likelihood that those three are going to be the guys that we see go into the season on the roster, and it's a very formidable, great group. Like Saquon Barkley can do it all, and then Will Shipley can do certain aspects of the game, and AJ Dillon can do certain aspects of the game. So Dillon and Shipley can fill in for Saquon Barkley easily when needed, or give him some time off the field easily. The only other thing that I really looked at was the punt return and the kick return. They really split it pretty fairly between Keelan Robinson and Anais Smith and Avery Williams. So I'll be interested to see through the remainder of training because they continue to rotate them the same way. I saw they rotated them today. It was like a night. It started out with Williams, and then it was Smith. So you can tell that there's a battle going on between Anais Smith and Avery Williams. I don't know if I see a way that both of them end up making the roster, so I'll be really interested to see how things go. We knew that that would be something to watch. Also, was who would they keep as the return man? Because obviously we had Britton Covey, who was exclusively a return guy in prior seasons.
Hey Connor, you there? Ooh, I don't know if we lost Connor. But as Connor was saying, yes, I do agree. When it comes to the special teams, you don't want to get Cooper DeJean out there if you don't have to. We would much rather have DeJean focus on defense, um, focus on defense, and not worry about having to go out there to punt return. Maybe use him in situational punt returns like the Eagles used to do with Deshaun Jackson back in the day. When you needed a big returner, like they used to do with Brian Westbrook. When you needed a big return, put DeJean back there. But Anaya Smith had a big return, and if they can continue to, or if he can continue to make plays, um, then that's his way on making the roster. By making the roster, by being able to return punts, return kicks, and being efficient at it, that's how you make the roster. If you're not going to be a top four receiver, top five receiver, we know that it's going to be AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson. I had Johnny Wilson on my initial early 53 man roster. Um, and I also had Avery Williams because I thought he would be the punt returner. But if Anaya Smith continues to make plays like he did last week, it'll be Anaya Smith. Um, and the Eagles do prioritize keeping draft picks. Now, Avery Williams was a free agent signing this year, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I am looking forward to see how that battles, over the next two games against the Browns and the Jets. Um, but yeah, I'm Anaya Smith, good start for him. We'll see what Avery Williams can do and can provide, and Cooper DeJean, like use him in situational returns when you need a big return, like D-Jack and like B West did in the past. Um, because there are some tight battles in the depth positions across this roster. We think that we know who the three running backs are going to be. We know who the top three receivers are going to be. And I mentioned I had Johnny Wilson. I don't think Connor had Johnny Wilson on his early 53-man roster, but I did, and he's been performing very well over the last week, as Connor said. Connor, you're back. What's up, bud? I think you're back. Maybe. Um, Let me think. Another positive for me. I mentioned Tanner McKee and AJ Dillon. Um, Jahad Campbell could have had an interception. Like there were a couple dropped picks by the Eagles. But yeah, like it's still early, and again, they're going to get a lot of the work that they get is going to be in this joint practice. When you watch the game at 1 o'clock on Saturday, you won't see the starters. You won't see Jalen Hurts. Obviously, AJ Brown's been out with a hamstring injury, so you won't see. I'm hoping we see him, in 3 weeks from tonight against Dallas, and I think we will. This is pretty much more of a precautionary thing when it comes to AJ Brown. Um, Devontae Smith had a back issue, but he's been back out there. Again, I have no issues with the way that the offense is going. And a lot of people were talking about how Jalen hasn't had a good training camp thus far. But I disagree with that. Like I would much rather Jalen Hurts try new things and quote unquote force passes down the field, and try to gain trust in his receivers than dump offs all camp. Why would you do that? It's boring. And I felt like that's kind of what he did last year. Try stuff, and then you can know what you can do going into the regular season. So we'll see. We'll see how his quote unquote bad preseason gets him going this year. I mean, he had a people classified as a great preseason last year, but again, it wasn't like a lot of take chances down the field type of thing. It was a lot of dump offs and whatnot. So we'll see what happens, and I think that Jalen is going to have a better year this year than he had last year, personally. Um, on the defensive side of the football, um, I can't wait till Zach Ball gets fully healthy. I know he's been out there for the last couple of practices. See what him and Jahad Campbell can do together. And we'll see what happens with Nakobe Dean. He's probably going to start on PUP, and I know he's been out there with the trainers, and people say he looks good. But you don't want to rush him back if you don't need to. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has been out there. Smile Munden Jr. has been out there. So we'll see what happens with the linebacker position. And again, I have no worries in terms of the health. I mean, Zach Ball's going to be ready to go in 3 weeks. Jahad Campbell, everybody said that he wouldn't be ready to start the season. He's probably going to be a starter week 1. Um, there's been good word out of this joint practices of Josh Uche and Azizo Jalari getting pressure on the quarterbacks. I know it's the Browns and their offensive line is not the greatest, but still, it's good to see that. We know what Nolan Smith can do. We know what Jalen Hunt can do. Now we don't know what they can do in a starting role. That's where it's going to be interesting. The starting role for those guys and getting more than 30%, 40% of the snap count. What can they do when they get up to 60%, 65, 70% of the snap count? I have no issues with Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter's going to potentially be an All Pro this year. Couple maybe a year or two away from being one of the best defensive players in the entire sport, and that's gonna he's gonna get paid. There's a reason why Howie didn't want to give out big contracts this year, because Jalen Carter is going to get a massive contract. Nolan Smith is going to get a decent contract. Jordan Davis could potentially get a contract. So Howie's playing the long game when it comes to trying to set up the future for Jalen Carter and being able to keep the team together. When Jalen Hurts took his big contract, he didn't necessarily want to be the highest paid player in the sport. He wanted to be able to keep the team together, and they were able to do that for the most part. Yes, 2 years ago after the Super Bowl loss against the Chiefs a couple years ago, they lost about 5 or 6 starters. And then the next year wasn't that great, but the team going into 2024 was outstanding, obviously. So we will see how that goes. Do want to touch base on the Landon Dickerson injury. Man, we got best case scenario with that. Everybody was, I don't know if you were like me on Twitter. I don't know if you were like me when it came to Twitter and just refreshing all day to figure out. I don't know if you were on Twitter like me all day to figure out what was happening with Landon Dickerson. Yeah, so I was glad that we got the best case scenario when it came to Landon Dickerson. Hopefully, I believe he'll be back and ready to go for week 1 against the Cowboys. We will see, obviously, but I mean, he was out there at practice after today, took a bag of beers out to the offensive line for both the Eagles and the Browns. Had a sleeve on his knee. He is one of the toughest SOBs around in the league. I mean, his after his last year at Alabama, he had that ACL injury, and he was, I think, by Alabama's pro day, he was out there doing backflips. So yeah, we will definitely see what's going on. We will see how things go with that front. Kenyon Green injured. I didn't have him making the 53-man roster. I think that the Eagles, when they traded CJ Gidre and they got him, they thought that maybe Stoutland, that could be another reclamation project like Mekhi Becton. But I just don't know if Kenyon Green has it. We will see. Maybe they can sneak him onto the practice squad, or there can be a team that's desperate enough that needs offensive line. Obviously, all teams want offensive line. So if you're able to, maybe bring him on and come away with anything, see if he can go out there and play, see if he can go out there and contribute in any way. Maybe a team will take a flyer on him, but I mean, obviously the starters for the Eagles offensive line are Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen has a stranglehold, I think, on that right guard position, Lane Johnson. They have the backup center. I have this written down right here. I'm sorry. Yeah, so Drew Kendall can probably be the backup center. Don't see any issues with that. Excuse me. Matt Pryor, who can play pretty much 4 positions. I'm pretty sure he's going to make the roster. Trevor Keegan, I think, is going to make the roster. And I had Miles Hinton and Cam Williams. Miles Hinton had a he didn't have the greatest game against against the Bengals. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm of the belief that Kenyon Green will not make the roster. Um, but we'll see. And again, I have complete faith in I have complete faith in Landon Dickerson coming back and being ready for week one. Obviously, they don't want to push it, but as I mentioned, he's one of the toughest SOBs on in the league, and if he can be out there, he's going to be out there. We saw what he did in the NFC Championship game, starting at center with a bad knee. Now he played the first half, and then Jurgens came back and played the second half with his bad back. But yeah, so I have complete faith in Jurgens doing what he needs to do to make it out onto the field. You back, Connor?
I am back. I don't know what happened, but we're in business. So I'm guessing you were touching on Dickerson's injury.
Yeah, and Kenyon Green.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Kenyon Green doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, he was running with the third team offense at this point. He probably seems like somebody who is going to be put on maybe, injured reserve, maybe pup and see what ends up happening. But as far as Dickerson goes, I don't think they're going to rush him. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are known to play the long game, especially with some of their injuries. But I mean, he won't end up on the pup list. He'll be back within the first 2-3 weeks at the most. I could possibly see him missing week one, but he is tough as nails. Like you said, like that video of him walking out, like he had surgery yesterday and he was walking out there with a cooler full of beer for some of the guys. That was pretty cool, and B, amazing that he was walking.
I mentioned in college when he had the ACL injury after his last year at Bama, he took the last snap in the national championship game. That something really cool Saban did, and during their pro day, he was doing backflips, coming off an ACL injury. So like he may have had a couple of knee surgeries, but like he's gonna go out there and if he can move and play, he's gonna play. He's gonna do what he can to play.
Absolutely, and I know that he'll be out there within the first 2 weeks easily.
I definitely agree there, and I also agree. I didn't have Kenyon Green on my 53-man roster. I don't even think he makes the team. Potentially practice squad, and as you said, if he's hurt, a phantom, IR stint or whatever, can keep him on the roster. So the Eagles have the Browns this week, and obviously the Eagles won't start anybody. We won't see Shador Sanders probably for the Browns. He has an oblique injury. Joe Flacco most likely won't play. Kenny Pickett might not play, so it could come down to Dylan Gabriel and Tyler Huntley for the Browns. They did just sign Isaiah Bond after the charges were dropped against him. He obviously won't play. They still have Junkins who's the only draft pick that's not signed, and his charges got dropped. So I'm sure that signing will happen within a week or so. I don't even know. Like the Eagles aren't going to play any of the starters. Maybe Tyler Steen gets a snap or a series or two, but they did that last week and he wasn't terrible. Like didn't notice him out of place. He had a really good block on the Will Shipley long run. Will Shipley has to gain his speed though because he should have scored a touchdown there. Who do you think? Who are you interested in seeing from the Eagles in this Browns game?
I continue to remain interested. Obviously, now that Bennett's is part of the CB2 battle during the joint practices, I mean, there was he wasn't very good, but neither were Jackson or Ringo. So, I mean, at this point, I think Bennett's on a fairly level playing field, except he doesn't know much about this defense. So I think, and I hope that they're going to get him out there a lot and see a lot of action and make this a fair, 3-man battle for the CB2 spot. Because like, I think we both agree, the CB2 may not actually be in-house, the answer to it, if the play continues through week 2. I mean, now that you only have 3 preseason games to work with, you can't sit there and say, oh, it was just 1 week. Okay, fine, it was just 1 week. But if this week's the same, you can't just say, oh, it was just 2 weeks. No, you have to try and figure out your answer. And I know a lot of local media guys are already starting to write about, well, what about Cooper DeJean on the outside? I feel like it totally takes away an advantage that Vic Fangio saw in having Cooper DeJean being able to be a versatile piece in the middle of this defense, whether it be at safety, whether it be at like some weird hybrid linebacker, or whether it be in the nickel. That was an advantage that Vic Fangio was playing with. And if you have to take that advantage away and move him to the outside because your answer is not in-house for the CB2 position, that I feel like that hurts the defense. I don't think it plays as a positive to have Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell be 100% your outside cornerbacks. I feel like Cooper DeJean needs to be able to be that versatile piece that Vic Fangio sees him as being. So I'll definitely be watching that CB2 battle and seeing, what Bennett does. I know it kind of sounds like the Cleveland Browns wide receivers had a field day today and had a decent day yesterday against most of the cornerbacks, even Kenyon Mitchell. Just ended like a bad week or bad couple days for the DBs altogether. And then, of course, I'm watching for the wide receivers because at the beginning of this whole thing, I said, I see no way and no world where they keep 6 wide receivers. And now it's starting to look like maybe that's a possibility with the emergence of Cooper, Wilson, if he can keep that consistent play up. I don't think Wilson was going anywhere. I think the big question mark was Anaya Smith. And now he's getting a fairly good split at punt returns and a look at kick returns. And he's not fumbling the ball as much as he was last offseason. That was the biggest issue with Anaya Smith last offseason was, could you trust him to be your regular punt return guy? But they seemed to not be able to trust him because he was dropping the ball a whole bunch. And then he ended up, I believe he was a phantom IR guy. I don't believe that the injury was necessarily as genuine as maybe the Eagles were playing it off to be. So those are the two main things that I'm watching for the Eagles this week. Two of the key battles is how many wide receivers are being kept on this roster. Does that consistency roll over week with Cooper and with Wilson and with Anaya Smith? And also that CB2. I mean, everybody's got their eyes on the CB2 spot and safety too. Like, I feel like that's still very much up in the air. Sidney Brown apparently had a pretty good day. There's a lot of people who are like, Sidney Brown works really well downhill, which me and you've talked about. Of course, he probably works pretty well downhill. Reed Blankenship can work well downhill too, but they also can miss tackles quite a bit and not be the best when they're working downhill sometimes. So those are the three main spots that I'm looking at and watching closely.
Yeah, and Makuba, I'm interested in seeing how he plays. He didn't play last week, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm interested to see him in game action. As he has an opportunity for that top safety spot. Because if the safeties don't look good again this week, they might have to make that Justin Simmons call. I mean, I've been calling for it. Just do it at this point. And see what he has left. He knows the defense. He knows, Fangio. He knows Parker. So just bring him in, get some veteran presence. Like Reed or Zach Baum is the oldest guy on the defense, and he's 28. Reed is the oldest guy in the secondary, and he's 26, if I'm not mistaken. So like, it's a fairly young. It's a really young defense, honestly. I think they're the youngest or the second youngest defense, and they're the least paid defense in the NFL. Obviously, all the money is on that offensive side of the football. So yeah, well, I'm just intrigued to watch a game, honestly, and hopefully just see the defense get after whoever's going to play quarterback. They're not going to be going up against Jamar Chase this week or Joe Burrow. So while it's not going to be the same talent, maybe get some positive tape, get some positive plays on film, and build yourself up going, into the Jets last preseason game and into that Dallas game, whether you're Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett, whoever it is that's going to play that second CB spot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they end up doing it. At this point, I can almost see all three of the guys making the roster and them just trying to continue in the early part of the season to try and just figure it out. Because Jacorian Bennett's obviously on a cheap rookie deal. Adoree Jackson is on a fairly cheap deal, not a whole lot of savings for them if they go and cut the guy. And then Keely Ringo, he's a really good special teamer, and I think they're still going to see him as a young asset. I agree with you. This defense is young and it could stand to take on a veteran presence or two to help. You're not completely taken away from these young guys by bringing in one of these by bringing in a veteran presence. I don't like. I know that Howie and I don't know if it was a Vic Fangio mentality or if it was more of a Howie and Sirianni mentality that they want to play some of the young guys and they want to see what they have in the young guys. But if that's not working out, you know you've got one of the youngest defenses. You know you got one of the cheapest defenses. You know you currently have, I think, almost $35 million in salary cap. You would love to roll as much of that over as possible, but there is a world where you can take advantage of some of these veteran free agents and continue to not have these humongous glaring holes that may cost you games. Like it presently looks now, most teams have two very viable wide receiving options. So you don't want to be that team that can't cover both of those wide receivers. Last year, we were able to do that and do it very well because the emergence of Kenyon Mitchell, we had Darius Slay, who played super well, then Cooper DeJean's emergence. You don't want it to be to the point where now they're capable of finding such a glaring weakness, because we've seen this in the past, and it can be a weakness that does cost us games. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I hate to overreact to one preseason game, but to see that it's continuing to roll through joint practices and a Cleveland Browns roster that isn't exactly anything to write home about, at what point do you need to question and start to worry about these positions and think maybe as Howie Roseman, maybe I do pick up that phone?
Yeah, you don't want that to be the derailment of potentially winning a second Super Bowl in a row. But Howie always has his ear to the ground and is going to do what he can to improve this team. So the Eagles and the Browns on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then next week they go to Jersey to face the Jets on Friday night, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see Justin Fields or any of the guys from the Jets. We will be back next week with a quick review and then kind of the sights and sounds of what went on in the game against the Browns and get you set for that Jets game. And then the week after that, we're going to do our before roster cut down day, which I think is the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 26th. It's usually a Tuesday, right? Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's usually a Tuesday, yep.
Yeah, so the 26th, if I'm not mistaken, we will do our 53-man roster prediction to see it, and we'll see how close we can get, see who can get the most correct. But that's kind of the plan that we have for the next couple of weeks as we get set for the banner unveiling at Lincoln Financial Field on September 4th against the Dallas Cowboys, who continue to Jerry Jones has pretty much said he doesn't care about winning anymore. He just wants to be the show. And that's what they are. They want to be the center of attention without winning. And that's what they're going to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Milton seems like he's making quite the case to say you can stop paying Dak Prescott anytime now, but Dak Prescott's got so
he didn't
much.
Look good in that Rams game. He didn't look good in the Rams game.
I mean, anything to create a quarterback controversy in Dallas, because there always seems to be one in Philadelphia. But I mean, I don't know what. Like, I get it. You got one of the most, if not the most valuable franchise among all professional American sports. But eventually, I mean, the fans got to just say that's enough of this BS and stop supporting it. But they don't, and it's great for us in the NFC East because we're competing now against the lowly Giants, the lowly Cowboys, lowly and dysfunctional Cowboys, and then the senior home facility of the Washington Commanders. So, I mean, it only spells good things for the Philadelphia Eagles for the next half decade, at least, if things continue to go at the rate that they're going. But I mean, I can't wait to get to the season and actually see the season start to unfold, because so many different things. No one saw the Commanders being what they were last season. Whether it was one-score games that they were winning or not. That to win some of those tough games and grind them out is huge. So what team's going to come out of nowhere? Are there one of the teams going to be able to compete with the Eagles? What are the Eagles going to look like? It's you got to just love football season. You have to love it. It felt like such a long time waiting for it and just living and dying on baseball for the last handful of months. So I just can't wait.
And college football starts next week, I think, too. And I'm a big college football guy too. So looking forward to waking up on a brisk Saturday morning, watching college game day. Watch games all day, just to watch all NFL games all day Sunday. Like I cannot.
You think you're getting a brisk day anytime soon, because it certainly doesn't feel that way.
Like we're at 80. We're between 85 and 90 degrees for the next week. I'm tired of it. I want cool weather. I can't stand the summertime. Just get me to football season. Get me to cool weather and some snow. Yes, I said it. Some snow. I love snow.
No, we disagree on that point. Nope.
It is what it is.
I just don't want the heat. I'm good for fall. Fall is perfect. Give me 20 degrees or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Let the leaves start to fall and let it be,
50
that's
degrees.
Perfect.
Give me 50 degrees Fahrenheit and I'll be happy. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. We do apologize for the technical difficulties. It happens. You never know when it's going to happen, but it does. And hopefully I was able to keep you guys entertained until Connor was able to get back. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRaw54. Follow the Eagles Pin Pool Network on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pin Pool Network. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the Eagles-Browns game on Saturday. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.